This is Paula Kahumbu talking to Esmond Martin about the wildlife trade. This is his particular area of expertise, and he's especially renowned for his work on rhino horn trade. Morning, Esmond.
Good morning, Paula. Nice to see you again.
Esmond, there's been a lot of very disturbing reports about the rhino horn trade across Africa. What's going on?
The worst rhino poaching as far as numbers are concerned is going on in southern Africa. It's actually quite appalling. Last year, a minimum of 123 rhinos were poached. Those are the official figures, so there are probably a few more. This year, up until the end of September, I think it's about 230. Big increase. Last year, there was very heavy poaching in Zimbabwe as well, and that rhino horn is probably going to China and Vietnam as well.
That's a significant proportion of the overall population of rhinos in southern Africa.
There's still a lot of white rhinos in southern Africa, maybe 17,000, so there's quite a large number. But the black rhino population is, I believe, in South Africa around 1,500.
So how on earth are these poachers getting away with this? What are they doing?
Well, on private land, some of the worst type of poaching is going on. What's happening is that, if you can believe it, and it's absolutely true, that professional veterinarians are going in helicopters and they're sweeping low over privately managed rhino sanctuaries, and they're firing darts from the helicopter into mostly white rhinos, who then fall down in a matter of minutes, and then they remove the horns, sometimes when the animal's alive, and then they disappear as quickly as possible because they don't want to get caught in the helicopter, plus helicopter time is very expensive. So many of these animals just bleed to death.
That sounds like an unbelievably barbaric way of getting a rhino horn, actually taking it off the rhino with a chainsaw when the animal is still alive. And these are veterinarians. Who are these people?
They're South African professional veterinarians and their wives. But from their point of view, it's extremely efficient because they can get into an area very quickly, remove the horns very quickly, and get out without being caught. And apparently they cover the number of the helicopter and this type of thing. But that's on the privately owned places. And then you've got a lot of poaching up in Kruger as well. Apparently those are people from Mozambique coming in. And then you've got problems in KwaZulu-Natal with more poaching, which is a quasi-government institution there. And the end buyers are Vietnamese and Chinese. And Vietnamese have been caught in the embassy in Pretoria dealing in this. It was photographed and filmed with the South African Broadcasting Corporation film, which I actually saw. And some of these horns are being intercepted by the authorities in Vietnam as well, and other horns are going into China.
It sounds like it's completely turning our concept of poaching in Africa on its head. We're used to the idea of a very poor person wearing torn and tattered clothes, running around with a Kalashnikov, shooting into the herds of rhinos and elephants. Sounds like a very precise, well-developed concept, and these people obviously have access to markets.
Yes, the thing that has driven it is apparently very large increase in price. As you say, the traditional way has been the way in Eastern Africa, but the price has gone up very high because there's new demand from Vietnam and the older demand in China, which allows you to hire a helicopter. I mean, a helicopter is $1,000 an hour, and this is a new technology for killing rhinos. It's as simple as that, and the South Africans have this technology.
How heavy are the two rhino horns that you could get off a black rhino or a white rhino?
The average black rhino in Eastern Africa has 2 horns, and it weighs just under 3 kilos. The average white rhino horn also has 2 horns, and it weighs about 5.5 kilos. In Asia, though, the horns are much smaller. For instance, from the rhinos in India and Nepal, it's about 750 grams. And that, of course, makes the difference. The local people think of the powerful of the ingredients. It's much more concentrated, they believe. The heaviest horn I've ever weighed and seen was a single horn from a white rhino in southern Africa, and it was 10 kilos. It was from what was then called Botswana Pilanesberg Game Reserve, and that's the heaviest one I've ever seen. But unlike elephant poaching, I think when a poacher sees a rhino, they're going to kill it anyway, because the price is so much higher, and even babies are being killed for the horn.
So what is the value of a rhino horn when it finally gets sold in China or Vietnam?
Paula, we don't have the data. It's absolutely appalling that we don't have it, but we don't have it. we don't have the data on rhino horn from Africa. We have Asian rhino horn prices. I was in Nepal in January this year, and the price of rhino horn, the export price, is $10,000 a kilo. But Asian horn is much more valuable than African horn, because the people who consume it believe because the horns are smaller on Asian species, therefore the ingredients are more concentrated. African horn used to be 1/8 the price of Asian horn. When I was in Yemen almost 3 years ago, the price on average was around $2,000 to $2,500. There was also a pair of brothers who were caught in South Africa about 3 years ago who claimed that they were getting $900 to $3,000 a kilo. They were actually killing the animals themselves. They were killing in Kruger, if you can believe it, in KwaZulu-Natal. I think they killed 19 animals. So those were the prices 3 years ago. But the prices have absolutely skyrocketed in every aspect. I mean, Britain, 10,000 pounds a kilo has gone up to. And the most incredible price increases have been for the antiques. Chinese have been making rhino horn cups for hundreds and hundreds of years, and there was a sale at the end of May in Hong Kong by Christie's, and 2 cups went for $5.1 million for one. And one was a vase, a simple vase with no carving. The other one was an intricately carved 18th century, I believe, late 18th century cup. And who's buying it? The mainland Chinese. The mainland Chinese are trying to buy their culture in the western part of the world, and they're paying these incredibly high prices. 2 years ago, the same person was selling rhino horn cups, and the highest one, as I remember, was just over $1 million. So look at what's been happening. It's just astronomical, these price increases.
That's kind of worrying. It makes me really wonder, how do you then protect these rhinos, given that you have these highly professional teams of people out there using helicopters and darts to capture the rhinos and to remove their horns? How on earth could you stop the devastation of the southern African rhinos, given those kind of statistics?
Let's look at India and Nepal. They both have rhino populations. The price of rhino horn out of Kathmandu and India is $10,000 a kilo, which is higher than what it is in Africa. Now, how have they managed it? Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world, and they manage it because they have approximately one person per square kilometer on the ground looking after rhinos, and they've got an intelligence system as well. In India, it's the same type of thing. They've got their biggest population in Kaziranga, which is in Assam, which is in northeast India. And that's about 750 square kilometers. And they have almost one person per square kilometer there looking after these animals. And in both India and Nepal, the people are out there walking around. They're not using vehicles, and they're just patrolling. And also they do have intelligence gathering systems. There's no shortcut to this.
But Esmond, you can have as many rangers on the ground as you want. If I'm a poacher and there's a cash incentive for me to do it, I will still probably try. And if I get caught, it's the penalty that might prevent me from continuing. What are the penalties in Asia for getting caught for it being involved in the rhino horn trade?
In Nepal, for instance, are quite extreme. It's quite interesting that in Nepal, they have the authority to put someone in prison for many years and to have a very, very high fine. It's at least 5 years that you can be put into prison. It doesn't go through the courts. It's the warden of Chitwan and Bardia National Parks. But down in Swaziland and certain other countries in southern Africa, they've got very high penalties as well. In Swaziland, it's a non-bailable offense. And that's the problem here in eastern Africa, is that you catch a poacher, and then he goes into prison for a night or two. He gets into the courts, he gets a bail, and then the thing goes on forever. And the penalties here in Kenya, they give penalties of $100 or $400, for instance, for a rhino horn, when it's worth thousands of dollars per kilo. So, as you rightly say, there's no disincentive to stop poaching, because even if you get caught, the fine is so low.
Thank you for that, Esmond. This is Paula Kahumbu reporting for WildlifeDirect. If you'd like to know more about this story, please check out our website, wildlifedirect.org.